Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the edge of time, where greatness was born. One life, one legacy. This is the final diary of a legend.
June 10th, 323 BC, Babylon. I lie here, on this cold bed, within this vast palace. Yet my heart feels weary. Outside, the moon hangs gently over the ancient walls of Babylon, and somewhere in the distance, the guards' footsteps echo softly, steady, like the heartbeat of an era soon to fade away. I am Alexander, son of Philip II, king of Macedonia. I conquered vast lands, from the distant shores of Greece to the mystical edges of India. But now, at only 32, I lie here waiting for death to knock gently at my door. All those glorious victories, Gaugamela, Issus, countless cities named Alexandria springing up across my empire, are now nothing but fading memories, drifting like fragments of forgotten dreams. I write these words, not to boast of conquests, but to show generations to come that I was simply a man, with burning dreams, hidden fears, and endless ambition that never found rest. Let me tell you my story, from the carefree child in Pella to the weary man here, who has weathered life's storms, carrying the weight of an empire upon his shoulders.
July 20th, 356 BC, Pella. I was born on a day marked by destiny itself, the night the great temple of Artemis at Ephesus burned to the ground. The seers called it the divine fire set to engulf all of Asia, my path already carved by the gods. My father, Philip II, a mighty king who transformed Macedonia from obscurity to power. My mother, Olympias, a strong, mysterious, wise woman from Epirus. She often told me about strange dreams, thunderbolts surrounding her womb, while my father dreamt of a lion emblazoned on a silver shield. They believed I was chosen by the gods. Yet to me, I was simply a boy, playful and curious, eager to explore the world around me. When I was 12, a merchant named Philonicus brought a wild horse to our court. Bucephalus, his name meant oxhead, was massive, fierce-eyed, untamable. Father nearly refused him, 13 talents, a fortune in silver. But I saw something else, fear in the animal's wild eyes, not of us, but of his own shadow. Calmly I stepped forward, turned him towards the sun, and whispered softly, "Don't fear the darkness. Look to the light." Remarkably, he quieted. When I mounted him, we flew like the wind across the fields of Pella. My father looked at me differently after that, with pride, with wonder. He placed his hand on my shoulder, his voice deep and powerful. "My son, seek a kingdom worthy of you, for Macedonia is too small." I didn't fully grasp his meaning then, but now I see clearly. It was the first time I touched my destiny, glimpsing a future far grander than my wildest dreams. At 13, Aristotle became my teacher, the greatest mind I ever knew. He taught philosophy, science, medicine, and the epic poetry of Homer, tales of Greek heroes. Those lessons at the temple of the nymphs near Naousa, beneath the warm golden sun, opened worlds beyond Macedonia. He once told me gently but firmly, "Alexander, knowledge is the mightiest weapon. A king can conquer land with swords, but only wisdom can conquer people's hearts." His words stayed with me forever. Alongside him was Leonidas, stern, demanding, relentless in training my body. Each morning was swordplay, horsemanship, endurance through hunger and exhaustion. He said, "A prince can study philosophy, but a king must know war, must bear hardship." These two men shaped me profoundly. Aristotle gave me wisdom, Leonidas forged my spirit. At 16, father left for campaign, naming me regent. My heart raced, excitement mingling with anxiety. When the Mede of Thrace rebelled, I led my first battle. The first blood spilled was not our enemies, but my own men's, due to my foolish mistake. That night, alone in my tent, I wept silently, overwhelmed by guilt, understanding for the first time the weight of power. But by morning, I rose stronger. I defeated the rebels, founded Alexandroupolis, my name etched on the map for the first time. I felt pride, but even more, a profound responsibility. I was always a dreamer, eager for conquest, yet deep within, I feared the burdens of power, feared the cost of ambition. Now, lying here in Babylon as my life draws to an end, Aristotle's words echo clearly. Conquering the world was never hard. Conquering myself, mastering my fears and insatiable ambitions, that was the battle I never fully won. In the year 336 BC at Aegae, it was the wedding day of my sister Cleopatra to Alexander III of Epirus. All of Greece was there, joyful, loud, and full of life. My father Philip was at the height of his power, preparing to conquer Persia, the greatest dream of his life. Everything felt perfect, dazzling, like a dream. Then Pausanias, his bodyguard, someone we once trusted, drew a dagger and stabbed my father in the theater. Philip's blood ran deep red on the white stone floor. That image still haunts me. I ran to him, held him in my arms. His breath was shallow. He whispered, "Son, you must finish it." And then he died. I was only 20, a boy, suddenly made king of Macedonia, heir to a shaken empire. The generals doubted me. The Greek city-states stirred in rebellion, and inside the palace, there were whispers to take my crown. The world felt like it was crumbling beneath my feet. I remember that first night on the throne. It was colder, heavier than I had imagined. I asked myself, can I carry the weight of my father's will? Or am I just a boy, dreaming of power, now forced to face its brutal truth? But I had no time for grief, no room for doubt. Thebes had risen, Athens watched with suspicion, and to the north, barbarian tribes gathered like wolves. I had to choose, either prove I was worthy of Philip's legacy or die in disgrace. I chose action, no hesitation. My first campaign, marching north to crush the Illyrians and Thracians. Not for bloodlust, but to prove to the army that Alexander was not just the son of Philip, but a commander in his own right, a king who could lead them to victory. Then came Thebes. They dared to defy me, declared I had died in the northern wars. I appeared at their gates, like a ghost returned. They refused to surrender. They tested my patience. The massacre of Thebes. It was the heaviest decision of my life, a scar that never healed. 30,000 were sold into slavery, the city reduced to rubble. I stood among the ashes, hearing the cries of the innocent, and I asked myself, have I become a tyrant? Is this the price of power? But it worked. The other Greek states submitted, without bloodshed. Athens sent envoys, offered apologies, and pledged loyalty. I learned that sometimes cruelty in the short term can spare greater suffering in the long term. But the scars it leaves never fade. Now, I am ready to fulfill my father's dream, to conquer Persia, an empire I have only seen in books, until now. Spring 334 BC, Hellespont. I stood at the prow of the ship, gazing across the waters toward the distant land of Asia. Behind me, 35,000 Macedonian and Greek soldiers, in their eyes, hope and a flicker of fear. Ahead, the Persian Empire, vast, wealthy, 10 times stronger than we were. It loomed like a massive stone wall, waiting. But I was not afraid. I brought with me the Iliad, Homer's epic, my favorite book. I kept it beneath my pillow every night. I wanted to become Achilles of this age, a hero not just remembered for strength, but for mind, for will. As I stepped onto Asian soil, I drove my spear into the ground and shouted, "I accept Asia from the gods, as a gift." It may sound arrogant, but it was the only way to inspire the men, to make them believe in the impossible. Troy, the legendary city, wasn't far. I went there. I offered tribute to Achilles and Patroclus, and I swore I would surpass them, write a greater story than theirs. The Granicus River, our first battle on Asian soil. It was brutal, immediate. Persian generals lined up across the river expecting me to hesitate, to wait. But I am not Philip. I hate waiting. I ordered the attack, right then and there, despite the steep banks, despite the rushing current. Parmenion, my father's old, wise general, warned me. "Your Majesty," he said, voice tight, "the river is deep. The enemy outnumbers us. It's a trap." I answered, "If I fear a shallow river, how can I ever conquer an ocean?" I charged, first. Bucephalus and I, one body, one soul, plunged into the stream, straight toward the heart of the enemy's line. A Persian spear nearly struck my head. Clytus, my loyal friend, saved me, just in time. My heart pounded. I felt death brush past me. We won. But as I looked at the bodies drifting in the river, Persians, Greeks, I understood. War is not only glory or strategy.
November 333 BC. Issus, Darius III, King of Kings, master of all Persia, came in person to face me. 600,000 Persians against 40,000 of us. To most, it seemed madness. They thought we would be crushed, but I saw opportunity. The narrow terrain at Issus made Darius's numbers worthless. I focused everything on one point, a direct assault on Darius himself, right into the heart of the enemy. The decisive moment. He and I locked eyes across the battlefield, two sparks colliding in midair, and in his eyes, I saw pure terror. He turned and fled, abandoning his mother, his wife, his daughter, the cowardice of a king. The victory at Issus turned me into a living legend, but it was also the beginning of something else. Power, intoxicating like strong wine, can blur the values you once held dear. Tyre, the island fortress, unbreakable, surrounded by sea, impossible to breach. 7 months of siege, the most brutal battle of my life. The people of Tyre believed the sea would protect them, but I ordered a causeway built, a massive land bridge from shore to island, a marvel of engineering and will. Every day, my soldiers fell, burned by Greek fire, pierced by arrows. Their blood and sweat soaked the sands, but we did not stop. No city could be allowed to defy my authority. When Tyre fell, I gave the order. All adult males executed. Women and children sold into slavery. 30,000 souls. That number still haunts me in the silence of night. Why did I do it? Was it rage or a message? A warning to the world? I'm no longer sure. Perhaps I had begun to forget who I was, to forget the compassion of a mortal man. Egypt welcomed me as a liberator. Not a single battle was fought. I was crowned pharaoh, wore the crowns of ancient kings. At the temple of Ammon in Siwa, the priest told me I was the son of a god, and I believed him. Or maybe I just wanted to feel divine, to be called the son of Zeus Ammon. It changed me. It made me forget the limits of being human. I founded Alexandria, a city bearing my name, on the shores of the Mediterranean. It would become the center of knowledge for the world, a bridge between East and West. And maybe, just maybe, that is the one thing I'm truly proud of. Not a conquest made by sword, but a city built on vision, on knowledge, on hope for a better future. October 1st, 331 BC. Gaugamela, the final battle against Darius. He summoned the full might of his empire. 1,000,000 men, war elephants, razor-sharp scythe chariots, cavalry from across Asia, and on that vast open plain, I had only 47,000. The night before the battle, Parmenion urged me to strike under cover of darkness. I refused, my voice full of pride. Alexander does not steal victory. I wanted the world to see that I could defeat Darius in the light of day, fair and absolute. That morning, I woke up late. The generals were panicking, but I told them, calm and confident. Why worry? Victory was mine before the battle even began. I felt the gods were with me, and I was right. We broke through the Persian center. Once again, I aimed straight for Darius, but this time, he didn't even look at me. He turned his back and fled before our swords ever clashed. The Persian Empire collapsed. I became the king of kings, master of the world, from Greece to India. At 25, I had conquered everything, and that feeling was like touching the power of a god. Persepolis, the grand capital of Persia. I let my men loot the city. Then, in a drunken rage, I burned the palace of Xerxes, vengeance, for when he burned Athens. But in the morning, I stood among ashes and smoke, and felt nothing but regret. This was not the act of a ruler, but of a madman. But it was too late. The fire had destroyed a civilization, a masterpiece of architecture, lost forever. After that, I began to change. I wore Persian robes, adopted their custom of prostration. The Macedonian generals began to whisper, "He's no longer Greek." Had I forgotten who I was, or was I trying to become something new? A bridge between two worlds, a ruler of many nations? To this day, I don't have the answer. Maybe I was just lost in the maze of power. India, the final edge of the world as I knew it. At the river Hydaspes, I faced King Porus and his towering war elephants. For the first time, my men were truly afraid, their eyes full of doubt. But I crossed the river at night, in a storm. I would not let them retreat. The battle against Porus was the fiercest I ever fought. Not because he was stronger than Darius, but because he was braver, more resolute. He fought to the very end, never turned, never ran. When he was badly wounded and captured, I asked him, "How should I treat you?" He answered, proud and defiant, like a king. I was in awe. I spared his life and returned his kingdom. In him, I saw the nobility I had lost. But at the river Hyphasis, my men refused to march further. They had been fighting for 8 years, thousands of miles from home. They were tired. They missed their families. For the first time, I had to accept defeat, not by an enemy, but by the loyalty of men who had followed me into the ends of the earth. And that defeat hurt more than any I had ever known. Gedrosian Desert. The journey home became a nightmare. I chose this path not because it was easy, but because I wanted to prove I could do what even Cyrus the Great could not. My arrogance killed thousands, loyal soldiers who believed in me. The water ran dry, the food was gone. Each day, we buried friends beneath the burning sand. One soldier brought me the last flask of water. I poured it into the dirt before the eyes of my army. If there's not enough for all, I will not drink. That moment was the last time I felt truly human on this cursed journey. Maybe I pushed too far, beyond the limits of man and nature. The cost was unbearable. Ecbatana, October 324 BC. Hephaestion, my closest friend, my love, the only one who truly understood me, died of fever. My heart was torn in two. I held his body in my arms for a full day and night, refused to let anyone come near. The world around me collapsed. I ordered a colossal funeral pyre, executed every physician who failed to save him, destroyed the temple of Asclepius. The god of healing had betrayed me. I even cut my hair, a gesture of grief only reserved for the death of one's dearest. Without Hephaestion, I felt like half a soul, He was the only one who dared to speak the truth, who could stop me when I went too far. The only one who saw Alexander, not just the king, but the man beneath the crown. Now, I was alone, trapped within the empire I created. In my final months, I drank more than ever before. Wine helped me forget the pain, but turned me cruel, violent. I killed Cleitus, the man who saved my life at Granicus, because he dared to speak the truth, because he reminded me of my father, Philip. My hands took the life of a friend, in anger, in drunken madness. In one rare moment of clarity, I saw what I had become, a tyrant, no different from the Persian kings I once despised and overthrew. I had become a shadow of the man I once was.
336 BC, Agi. It was the wedding of my sister Cleopatra to Alexander Thrace of Epirus. All of Greece had gathered. The air rang with laughter, music, and royal pride. My father, Philip, at the height of his power, was preparing to conquer Persia, his lifelong dream. Everything felt perfect, brilliant, like a dream. Then, the blade came. Pausanias, a trusted royal guard, drew a dagger and struck down my father in the theater. His blood spilled over the white marble. That image haunts me to this day. I ran to him, held him in my arms. His breath was shallow. "You must finish it." And then, silence. I was 20, a boy, suddenly crowned king of Macedonia, inheritor of an empire, already crumbling. The generals doubted me. City-states stirred in revolt. And inside the palace itself, there were whispers of my downfall. The whole world felt like it was collapsing beneath my feet. That first night, sitting on the throne, it was colder than I ever imagined, heavy. I asked myself, can I carry the weight of my father's legacy? Or am I just a boy, chasing the illusion of power, now crushed by its reality? But I had no time for doubt or grief. Thebes was rising in rebellion. Athens grew suspicious. And to the north, barbarian tribes stirred. I had to choose. Prove I was worthy of Philip's name, or die, despised and forgotten. I chose action, without hesitation. My first campaign, northward. I crushed the Illyrians and the Thracians, not because I craved blood, but because I had to prove to my army that I was not just Philip's son. I was a commander, a king. Then came Thebes. They had declared me dead. I returned like a ghost, standing at their gates. They refused to surrender, dared to test my resolve, and I responded. What happened next was the heaviest decision of my life. Thebes burned. 30,000 were sold into slavery. The city was leveled. I stood amidst the ashes, the cries of the innocent all around me. I asked myself, have I become a monster? Is this the price of power? Arrian, in his Anabasis Alexandri, would later write, it was brutal, but necessary, a message of terror to preserve the realm. And it worked. The other Greek cities surrendered, without blood. Athens sent envoys, they apologized, and they swore loyalty. I learned something that day. Ruthlessness can end wars before they begin. But the scars, they stay with you forever. Now, I was ready to finish my father's dream. Persia, that vast empire I had only known from maps and scrolls, was about to become real.
These are the last words I can write. My hand is too weak now. How will they remember me? As Alexander the Great, the conqueror of the world, the builder of an empire unlike any before, or as Alexander, the boy who lost his father at 20, desperately trying to prove himself worthy of a great man's love and expectations. I conquered from Greece to India, over 5 million square kilometers. 70 cities bear my name. But I could never conquer myself. I could not overcome the fear of being abandoned. I could not tame the thirst for power, endless, unquenchable. What do I leave behind? This empire? It will crumble the moment I die. I know that. My generals will tear it apart like dogs over a bone, and blood will follow. But maybe I leave something else. I proved that nothing is impossible when driven by human will. I bridged east and west, brought Greek thought to India and Eastern knowledge to Europe. I created the Hellenistic world, where an Egyptian could study Greek philosophy, where a Persian could become a Macedonian general. Maybe that is my true legacy, a legacy of connection, of cultural exchange. I wonder, will the children of the future reading my story realize that I was once a child too? That I too trembled before the storm? That I cried when I lost someone I loved? That I dreamed of being accepted, of being loved? I hope they understand this. True strength lies not in conquering the world, but in conquering oneself, in facing one's fears and mastering one's own ambition, something I never fully achieved. Bucephalus, my most loyal companion, who understood me without words, died before me in India. Hephaestion, the love of my life, the only one I ever truly trusted, is long gone. And now, I too will follow them. To a world with no burdens, no crowns, no swords. Perhaps in that world, I'll be just little Alexander again, riding Bucephalus through endless fields, needing to conquer nothing, just to live, to be loved, and to be at peace. The moon slips behind the cliffs. The sound of the guards grows faint. I close my eyes and let the river of history carry me away.
Alexander III of Macedon died on June 10th or 11th, 323 BC, in Babylon. He was only 32, a short life, but one of relentless motion and upheaval. As he had foreseen, his empire crumbled immediately. The Diadochi, his successors, the generals closest to him, divided the empire through decades of brutal wars, tearing apart the legacy he left behind. But Alexander's true legacy endured. The Hellenistic world he created lasted for nearly 300 years, until Rome rose to power. Alexandria, the city that bore his name, became the greatest center of learning in the ancient world, where knowledge from east and west intertwined. The Library of Alexandria stands as a monument to this intellectual legacy. More than 2,300 years later, we are still telling the story of a boy from Pella who proved that one human, no matter how small, can change the world and shape the course of history. Alexander the Great, not because he was perfect, not because he was without fault, but because he was wholly human, with all the ambition, the glory, the mistakes, and the sorrow that make us who we are. Greatness leaves footprints. Let's follow them together. On this channel, we don't just remember the giants of history, we walk beside them. Subscribe to uncover the untold moments, the hidden struggles, and the timeless wisdom of the world's greatest minds and leaders. Because to understand greatness is to become greater yourself.